We're with Sacramento County Sheriff Sergeant Sean Hampton, who, in addition to being the department's current spokesperson and public information officer, has more than a decade of tactical and SWAT team experience and is, of course, familiar with situations like the active shooter scene that we saw in Las Vegas this week. Sergeant, one of the things we keep thinking about is, firstly, when you see a situation like this, it's now being called the largest mass shooting in United States history. Even though you weren't directly involved in it, you guys go through regular training once you're out of the academy on an annual basis and even more frequently than that. How do you take these experiences from other departments and fold that into how you approach a situation like this?
Well, just as any situation evolves, and you can look back as a law enforcement organization and as law enforcement as a whole, and reevaluate your response. As suspects evolve, we must do the same in law enforcement, and we must learn from our mistakes, and we also must learn how to do things better, how to better respond and better keep our community safe.
San Bernardino is the other example that I keep thinking of. Are there things that you learned from that have been incorporated now into Sacramento County Sheriff's training?
Yes, certainly. We've spoken with them. Our tactical teams have spoken with them and kind of reviewed that event and attended the debriefing on the event. And we can always learn from things, from events such as this. Law enforcement is no exception to learning from past experiences. We must, to remain vigilant, must learn from the way we do things and how we can improve things. Technologies change, performances change, equipment changes, tactical equipment changes, and stuff like that can always benefit our response to an event such as this.
Now, it's more than just the equipment and the physical response. There's also the human and emotional response. And as I understand it, one of the things that people in your position and others like you have to do is essentially, I don't want to say ignore, because you're certainly not ignoring people who are hurt and in need of assistance, but you have other priorities you have to focus on. So as people are begging and pleading for your help, how do you discipline yourself to maintain the focus you need to maintain and focus on those priorities?
It is a difficult responding to anything like this, of such an event, where you have actual death and carnage that's actually occurring or has occurred in the recent past, to try to understand how to develop skills to do that is very difficult. We do sometimes, in situations like this, have to bypass victims in order to keep others safe and potentially stop the active shooter by addressing the problem itself and or assisting others in maintaining positions of cover where they can be shielded from being injured from a possible active shooter.
And that's the priority there too first, isn't it? And that's eliminating the threat so that even more people aren't hurt.
Absolutely, 100%. That is the core response into responding to these incidents, and a rescue task force such as we have here in Sacramento County is part of that. And part of that training of the rescue task force is understanding how to enter events like that and keep people safe and minimize casualties as best we can.
Now, along with that, certainly it takes an emotional toll on police officers, sheriff's deputies, and others. What do you do in the aftermath to make sure that doesn't wear on you emotionally?
As far as the response from our department and the counselors that come and assist our members of our department after incidents like this, those are in place. We utilize those on a regular basis, even if it's something such as an officer-involved shooting or maybe a tragic shooting where other folks have perished as a result, and our officers have responded to that scene. Sometimes those have taken emotional toll on our officers, as well as other personnel that do respond. The law enforcement chaplaincy, as well as counselors that we have with the Sheriff's Department, help our folks try to cope with these events as they happen and after they happen, to follow up with them and make sure that they're doing okay.
Well, and the first name that comes to mind there, obviously, because a lot of your guys and gals were involved directly and indirectly, is Deputy Bob French. Your department is still dealing with the emotional toll of losing somebody who was so important to so many people.
Absolutely, and it's it's not only the losing Bob, but it's the emotions that went into that day, the things that people saw, the things that occurred. Those things can take an emotional toll that can last a lifetime for some folks.
Now, something else you've also touched on too, and that's that Sacramento County Sheriff's Department or other law enforcement agencies don't work in a vacuum. You're working in conjunction with other agencies who have different jobs and perform different functions. Tell me a little bit about the coordination among some of those agencies when we have an incident here locally.
So we work very closely with Sacramento Metro Fire Department. We train with them on a regular basis, and they actually come into our academies and start teaching folks in our academies that go throughout the region to other departments. But they learn from us and our partnership with Sacramento Metro Fire on how to respond to these type of events. Our cooperation with other law enforcement entities as well as the Metro Fire Department is very beneficial. We actually have a written agreement with the Sacramento Metro Fire Department on how we're going to respond and work as a unified command on addressing these incidents.
And they also have to know how to deal with a situation. Maybe there's an active shooter so that they stay safe. I mean, there are certain protocols they follow when there's still shooting happening versus when the situation has been brought under control, isn't there?
Absolutely. We work collaboratively with them to develop how we're going to respond and what we expect from them and vice versa. We work together in that response to make sure not only the community's safe, but our officers and firefighters are safe within our region.
How much joint training do you get to do with them?
We do a lot, so it really depends on the event, whether it's an emergency response to something such as a shooting or a minor shooting. Major events, such as maybe an active shooter response, we work with them in regards to the flooding that occurs in our region occasionally, as well as other regional assets and other departments in our region. We work together to try to address those problems before they occur and try to develop a good standard response to just about as many things as we could possibly imagine.
Now, the one sort of variable in situations like this are the people who are involved who are not trained like you guys are, everyday citizens, like the 22,000 people who are now scrambling in fear for their lives in a situation like this. What kind of advice do you give to folks who are in a situation like this, not only to protect themselves, but what can they do to help you make your job easier and bring it to an end as quickly as possible?
One of the things they can do is help us, direct us to where the shooter or person that's causing this traumatic event, direct us to them, provide us with a description, tell us what they're armed with. It is a chaotic event. There are a lot of things going on, but one thing that is most important and paramount is stopping the threat in an incident like that. The community and the members that are maybe present at an event like that could direct officers to that suspect's location. Again, if there are multiple assailants, assist us in identifying them. We understand that it is a highly emotionally charged event. We get that. But actually going into a circumstance like that and finding people that are cooperative and can understand what our objectives are is extremely, extremely important.
All right, very good. Sacramento County Sheriff Sergeant Sean Hampton. Thank you, Sergeant.
Thank you.
They call that room a kill box. How will law enforcement look at this now? This is a new tactic.
Yeah, I think every so often, unfortunately, we see these things that we've never seen before. And being this is the largest mass shooting in our country's history, when we get done reviewing all of this, I'm sure there'll be nationwide debriefs and things like we typically do. We do a good job of that in law enforcement, and we'll probably learn all sorts of new things. But, we have a lot of big functions in Sacramento, too, that we have to be aware of, and we've been planning over the years with Golden One and other sites to prevent these sort of things. And so I'm sure we'll learn some new tactics and new things to look out for at the end of debriefing this in Las Vegas.
Yeah, because the police department was consulted when the Golden One was being built, and yet we had that attack in Manchester at the Ariana Grande. That was an indoor venue. We had the one that just happened here in Vegas, which was an outdoor venue. So there gets to a point where I think you have to ask yourself, what is it that you can do when you have done just about everything that is humanly possible to try and stop something like this?
Yeah, we were consulted and continue to be consulted, and we actually talked about these specific type of things, terrorist type attacks, if you will, on things like Golden One. But we also have large concerts out on Capitol Mall that are open, and with a lot of buildings around, and so we do a lot to prevent those sort of things. But I think the other thing that we have to do and continue to do is keep an eye on caseloads, if you will, of people that exhibit kind of mental health type things or these sort of tendencies and not take them lightly.
But this was a man who basically had no record that the FBI said was not on our radar.
Just a citation.
Right, was not on FBI's radar, but we'll see if there was other indicators. That's some of the things we learned from these things, if there was indicators that we should in the future pay more attention to. So we'll see those things when they get done debriefing.
But Chief, how do you protect from above? This guy was 32 floors above when he rained bullets down on them. So, I mean, I'm thinking about the New Year's Eve celebration in Old Sacramento or along the Tower Bridge. I'm thinking about the Pride Festival, the parade that happens in downtown Sacramento. How do you protect people?
Yeah, it's a unique situation in Las Vegas in that it's a hotel across the street where hotels are, pretty much open to anybody that books a room. In Sacramento, we have mainly office buildings and things that are around the venues that we have.
You have you have apartments, people live there.
Some of them, yeah, but most of them on the Capitol Mall are office buildings that are a lot more restricted than a hotel. And we sweep roofs and things like that, bomb dogs, SWAT officers that check those venues before we have large events like that. But again, we'll learn more when we get done evaluating the whole Las Vegas thing, and I'm sure there's going to be other things for us to look into in future events here and learn from Las Vegas. So we'll see what those are.
Yeah. Because our time's limited, and this is the first time we've actually had you here in studio, though, Chief, I want to ask you how you're settling into the new job right now. I mean, this is the first time
This
you've
was
had to
fun,
deal
wasn't
with
it?
this was the first time you had to deal with a situation like this, which I'm sure you and your colleagues across the country have some sort of conference on after you get a massive shooting like this. But how has the job in general been coming along?
Yeah, we in terms of Vegas on dealing with this, Vegas dealt with it, not us, and so we have to learn from what they
Are you in
do.
contact with their police chief, or will you?
We will be in the debrief and all that, but I think the speed, and we don't know all the details yet, but the speed in which they found that room and were able to end the things, I think is very commendable of the police department there, and our condolences go out to all the victims and all that. But in terms of how things have been going in Sacramento, it's great. I'm back home. So it's been busy. We've had a lot of major traumatic incidents in Sacramento in the short time I've been here, officer-involved shootings, homicides that are very, very horrific and tragic, and kids getting killed and things like that. So it's been extremely busy, but it's great to be home.
Well, Chief, you just mentioned a couple of things that we would have talked about with you, on any other day, but we appreciate you coming in so much to talk about this horrific shooting in Las Vegas and how the Sacramento Police Department, as you said, will go about their jobs after a debriefing of what went down in Las Vegas, and we sure appreciate you coming in, and we look to have you in on a semi-regular basis.
My pleasure. Thank you.
We still miss you out in Roseville, though. I'm a Rosevillian, so we still miss you out there. All right.
I was out there for a soccer game this weekend. Does that count?
Okay. Yeah, I guess so.
Chief Daniel Hahn joining us live here from the Sacramento Police Department. Our time 7:47.